You were going to answer a question, but the person that's receiving the question isn't here to receive it, so you don't have to say it.
I will answer the question. The building and infrastructure works, the construction cost at the moment, based on the scheme that we've got, the scope that we've got, is an outturn of 18.6 million. Mm-hmm. Divide that by the square metre rate of 2,419 squares, gives you the 7,705.
Excellent, thank you very much. So with all those questions done, we will now go into debate. Right, who would like to debate something? Pauline? Aye, Tim Sick. Now, just to put you in the picture, during the break, Councillor Templeton, myself, and Councillor Scandrett have talked about Councillor Templeton's foreshadowed motion, and we are happy to include her points in our motion, in our recommendation.
And thank you, Sarah, for that.
That was good clarity. So there's no debate. So with that, I'll put them up. So, Councillor Cotter first.
Look, I don't have a lot to say. I'm thoroughly supportive of this. Yes, the extra money is not that palatable. We have got a mechanism to address that. But this is obviously very much needed. We've heard passionate pleas from the community. There has also been expectation raised. It's also been deferred already, as we've been told by the board. It's more than a library, and it's more than a service centre. It's actually the heart of the community. Noting that a new building will be a better building, there's going to be improvements, operational costs will be much, much lower. For me, it's just got to go ahead, and I really do hope that all councillors today get in behind this community and the local councillors and support this project.
Okay, Councillor Peters, please.
Thank you. This is, I believe, the payback moment for the faith that Councillor Scandrett and his community has paid, and a lot of others have paid to the Hornby community with the progression of the Hornby Centre Maratiki, which is due to open next year. So I will be supporting this, although I do have some questions around, as Councillor Keown raised, around why this 2003 building had failed. And I do hope we find a way of learning from why a building as recent as that has not stood up better than it has, because there's nothing more certain than going around the same track. Just get you back to the same place. But I will support this for the sake of Councillor Scandrett's community, and thank you for your support through the years for the Maratiki Hornby. It's been really appreciated by our community, and let's get on and get this on track so that you can get the facility that your community so desperately needs as their community hub. So let's do it.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Kia ora koutou. The first thing I'd want to just do is acknowledge Councillor Scandrett's work and his way for advocating for not only the library but his ward, and also the other local councillors are part of that community board. Also like to acknowledge the community board themselves, and Callum and Kira here today, to say how amazing of the work that they're doing in their space. For libraries, it's a really important piece of the puzzle for myself, and with thanks to his worship and giving me the youth and multicultural roles, these are hubs for these acts to happen. So it's really important that we continue to encourage them. We are in the game of medium to long-termism, and it's something that I fully support. I'm really looking forward to continuing to do the work that we're doing, looking forward to the long-term plan deliberations to make sure that we continue to work in that long-termism. Nō reira, kia ora koutou, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fields.
Kia ora. Look, no councillor makes a decision like this without any serious reflection, but to create the world-class city that we all believe in, we need to be visionary about a lot of things and make some tough calls. And I'm really proud to be part of a council that does make tough calls. Today we've got a tough decision to make, but the community's behind us, which is great. I acknowledge the chair of the local community board in saying they regret the high price tag, and it's important to acknowledge that, but that's life, and there is a higher concept here. So if people ask me about my why do I get out of bed every day and why did I get involved in local body politics, it's because of this kind of thing. Like, I firmly believe the number one way you can create equity for our citizens and our future citizens is by providing them with cool stuff to do and cool places to go, places that are accessible, where they feel safe. That's how we build a city, and that's how we build well-being. So I'm supporting the resolution today. And I think that in 50 or 100 years, when the population of Christchurch is about 1.5 million people, you know, they can look at a building like the South Library and say, look, that's a council that cared enough to create not just a building, but a community space that helps to build a city. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Henstock.
Kia ora, thank you. We have a real challenge ahead of us with our long-term plan coming up, and we know that deliverability and affordability really are the key focus areas for us. Like Councillor Fields has said, there's a lot of reflection that goes into decisions like this, and I recognise that this project is important to the local community. They're really behind it. This is more than a library. This is a really well-utilised space, and it is a key place of connection in this community. And I want this project to proceed to give some certainty to the local community, because I think that's important. I spend a great deal of my time in my own local libraries in Papanui and Redwood, so I really know the value of these spaces. And this is where we should be investing our money to support our communities and to grow stronger communities. I acknowledge that they've waited many years and they've prioritised other projects ahead of theirs. I am uncomfortable with the costs, with the increase in the costs, and regrettably the escalation of those costs is for the most part unavoidable. Today I would much prefer to have confirmation of where that extra 10 million is coming from, and I do look forward to some answers to some of the questions asked by Councillor Kewen regarding why the building on the site failed, and I think if it's the land, then we need to know about that sooner rather than later. In approving the project today and the recommendations today, we're effectively committing to finding an extra $10 million from somewhere. We've got the mechanism to do that through the long-term plan, but we need to be really clear about this, that there are no more rabbits to pull out of the hat. There's none. And we have to be prepared to give up something else. And if we're not prepared to do that, then we'll be pushing the cost onto the ratepayer, and I'm not prepared to do that. I'm prepared to offer something else up, and you all know that I've got a cycleway project in my ward. I'd happily put $10 million onto this library project rather than that project, which doesn't have the community behind it. So I challenge each and every one of you to think about what you are prepared to defer or to give up for this project, because that's what we're going to have to do. And if you're not prepared to do that, then I fail to see in good conscience how you can approve this recommendation without knowing where that money's going to go from. So please, before you vote today, I ask you to think about what you're prepared to substitute, because I know what I'm going to substitute.
Thank you. Councillor Barber.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this. I think libraries are an incredibly important part of the fabric of our society. I've always loved them myself. This is an earthquake hangover project that we really need to complete and move on with. I'm also uncomfortable about the cost increase, but I feel like it's something that we just have to do and to move on from it. I'm really hoping that that it'll have a great foundation for those of us who have lived in houses that were affected by the earthquake. The foundations are incredibly important. This was built on land that is right next to a creek, and those areas around our city that have been built around creeks, buildings have not done that well. So I'm sure they'll come up with a great foundation, and have learnt a lot from what's gone on around the city. I'm really happy to support Tim and your board. Obviously, you've been advocating this for a long time. You'd much rather it happened sooner. And I just ask that you remember the people of Burwood when we come looking for a community centre for our very affected earthquake community. We lost a lot of community facilities, so I thought I'd better jam that one in too. Cheers.
Thank you. Because we've had lots of debate to the positive, we'll go straight to the seconder, which is Tim, and then me, and we're off.
Yeah, look, thank you, and I thank my colleagues around the table for the questions they've asked.
Is that onto the concrete?
One of the things, though, is wording and how we use it. We've heard comments of, gold-plated palaces, etc. But one of the words that I do want to correct everyone on is failure. Why did this building fail? It did not fail. Every single person that was in that building got out safely. And that is the paramount that we should remember. New buildings now are built for that, not for can they be repaired or rebuilt. Actually, if everybody gets out safely, most new buildings will not survive and be rebuilt. That is the number one thing we must remember when we truly talk about communities, because communities are made up of people. When we talk about libraries, to use the word most important, the library in your community is the most important because they serve your community. This library is the second most used in Christchurch behind Tauranga. Doesn't mean it's the most important or the second most important, but it is the last building on the library's portfolio of buildings to be repaired. And I voted for that to happen, and I'm sure there's a few people behind the scenes that are kind of kicking me now, to do that because there were other communities in our city that needed things before we did. We could glue it together, and I say we, actually other people did it, and I want to commend the library staff and the community board staff and the service centre staff for putting up with that building, which has to have the sewers kind of pumped out and things and all sorts of things, but you have done an amazing job. And I do remember when I went there and I saw young school children teaching old people, and I say old pensioners, to use computers. I know it's going to. I should have actually joined the class, to be quite honest. But that's so moving. And with my history with learning disabilities, going to the library, and that was for someone who couldn't read, it's the oddest thing, isn't it? That's an oxymoron, really, where you go to a lot. But there's lots of pictures in a library, so. But they are so important to us, and this is so important to many, many people. So I hope that you support it, and I think the questions, but they have been answered. And if you want to read reports, there are so many. There is so much information, and I think it's probably second only to the town hall when it comes to critiquing and going through information. So thank you all, and I hope for your support. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. I haven't heard anyone say that this isn't an important facility. This is a really well-loved community facility. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But I think there's still a number of questions that have not been answered to my satisfaction for us to make a decision today. And I do think we need to get an understanding of how IL levels influence the cost of both repair and rebuild. And I haven't had a repair schedule, nor have I had a really clear explanation around the cost difference. So I'll be abstaining on this today. I think there needs to be more information. Again, just to repeat, this is not saying I do not support the South Library as a community facility. I absolutely do. It's a fantastic facility. I have used it on multiple occasions, both as a councillor and as a member of the public. But I think what we need to do as a city is really understand the competing pressures that we have on our finances with the ability of what we can afford. And I think having a really clear understanding about why certain things are a certain IL level and what the cost implications are is absolutely essential. There are a number of other facilities that we have in the city that are not given IL3 status, but are also equally used by local communities as places of importance in time of disaster and in times of everyday life. And I think it's really important that we look at how we do things as a council. For those of us who are at the Governor's Bay Jetty rebuild, I think the quote from council to do it was $8 million, and it came in about 3.5 million with the community doing it, right? I know from the recent time when we've been building facilities that one of the most successful that came in under budget and on time, and certainly didn't have everything that people wanted in terms of its scope, was Te Poi Toi Toi, the Linwood Pole, a design build contract, which seemed to be a very good way of ensuring that costs were realistic in terms of what we could afford. So, but recognising we've had a number of facilities in the last few years that have all had massive increase in costs. So I think I am heartened by the fact that this will be consulted on through the LTP and that the contract will not be awarded prior to us confirming the financial increase in the LTP. And I think that's an eminently sensible approach, but I still feel we don't have sufficient information to be making this decision today, particularly around the importance levels.
Thank you. And lastly, me. In my mind, this needs to happen. We need to get... Oh, sorry. Aaron, Councillor Kewen, sorry.
Yeah, like Yanni, I still have too many questions around this, and yes, the building worked as it was meant to and people got out in the February quakes, but has it survived as a building being built in 2003? And no, because parts of the building are barely above 34% of MBS. So in my book, I'd call that a failure. And is it the site? Is it the land? We should know that before we continue. Is anyone saying that there shouldn't be a South Library? No. Is anyone saying that the South Library facility and community facility that's there should not be 2,650 square metres? No. Is everyone saying $32 million to spend on this is okay? Most of the table, yes. Yanni has questions around it. Most of you seem to agree to it, but I had someone say to me yesterday that only people spending other people's money would spend that on a facility. Only people spending other people's money would spend that on a facility, and I have to agree. So like most of you, I went and did my own research and looked at some of the other popular libraries around the city, like Fendleton, like Shirley, like the one in Linwood, which all seem to be fine as basic commercial style tilt slab construction buildings, which come in at $3,200 to $4,000 a square metre. This is around double that or more, depending on which number you can land on. But why are council buildings coming in so much? I'll tell you why, because I looked at the architect's website. It's fantastic. The architect designs stunning buildings. This new building, with its monorail around the outside and so on, will win awards because it is a stunning facility. But do all of our facilities need to be stunning, or do they need to be adequate? And I heard the term cost of living crisis bantered around a few times this year. Not really reality, because we are not really paying any attention to that today. We're just ignoring it and adding $10 million to the city's budget deficit that we can't afford. Could we build a fantastic facility for a lot less money? Yes. Have we done the work to get there? No. Should it be 2,650 square metres in that neighbourhood? Yes. Did the pump station next door that was built in the 1940s fail? No. So why are we rebuilding on that site if this could potentially fail again? And in a city that wants to be environmentally conscious, replacing that building again after we've done 20 years, and then let's say it fails again on that site within 50 years, or when the Alpine Fault goes, or whatever, that's not very environmentally sustainable. We need to be smarter about where we build and how much we spend. So I'll be voting against because we haven't done the work to get there.
Thank you, Aaron. Right. In my mind, this needs to happen, especially to get on with the design, but it's up to us to find $10 million in the LTP. That's the secret to success. Not extra money in the LTP. It's up to us to make it happen, to prioritise money from somewhere else. And I agree with some of the other councillors. We cannot afford it. But if we get the money from another project, I don't care what project, but that's what we're charging ourselves with probably until Christmas time to know where we're going to find that. So that's the important thing in my view. But I have been down to the South Library. Every time I've been there, it's been very well used, and everyone in the community loves it. So I will be supporting it. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? And one abstention, is that right, yeah? Thank you. Carried. Thank you. Where are we up to?
We are going to item 11.